Probably what has touched me the most over the years is when I have an adult come to receive Jesus as their Savior for the first time. You normally think of those decisions being made either as a child or most often as a teenager. And so to me it's exciting when someone has had the experience of adult life without Christ, and then the change that they feel when they come to know Christ. And both I've had one recently in my Ebenezer church, but both the Perennial Grace, I often preach about the Perennial Grace, and often as they tell the story of the Perennial Grace of God working in their life to bring them to the point of saying, well, I need something more and I'm missing something in my life. And then that verse in Romans where it talks about the Spirit witnessing with their spirit. As an adult, they've known life before Christ, and then the excitement and the joy that they experience knowing Christ as an adult. That's happened at my Ebenezer church, and it's happened at other churches I've served as well.
In the first 8 years of ministry, we estimate I had 120 funerals, and I was the youngest pastor these churches had, and the second appointment in Sellers, our oldest son was born there. We were literally adopted, with all these grandparents, and in fact I would sometimes be called before the ambulance, and one time before the coroner, and it was just one of those things where it got to me. I really wondered whether I belonged in parish ministry, and that was difficult. The trials that we've had recently in the conference have been difficult, but I think the most difficult for me was during 9/11. We lost a member in 9/11. I was serving in Bucks County at Scottsville, and to my knowledge, nothing was ever found of her, no license or anything, no purse or wallet like in some of the other victims, and so we assumed that she was vaporized. Her husband was 26 years sober. He remained sober, but he suffered a breakdown, and I was involved with that, way in over my head. Had some mental health professionals helping me, but they weren't on the spot pulling him out of places in Philadelphia and getting him back to the church and just praying with him in that church.
One time I was at annual conference and walking around, and I had my military uniform on. I've been a chaplain in the military for a number of years at that point, and the two pastors were sitting on a bench right by me, and they said, well, when are you going to come back to the ministry? And either the way you look at it is you get angry, or you think how funny it is. Not very long before that, I'd preached to 1,000 teenagers, and they were the same age as people in the congregation. And I wonder how many of those pastors had 1,000 people under the age of 19. It's a powerful ministry, and I so enjoyed that because my assistant was the music minister from I think it was an African Methodist Episcopal church, and his way of singing and getting things across, so he had the whole auditorium up and swaying with soon and very soon we're going to go see the King. And that went on. There was such a spirit in that room, and these were just teenagers. And
I was able to go to seminary and do a Doctor of Ministries with a dissertation on gentleness and healing power of gentleness, and it helped me crystallize my whole ministry and aspects of my ministry that I hadn't really put into words yet. And when I discovered that, yes, this was me and God's calling to me to exert this gentleness and in ministry, and I interpret gentleness as respectful kindness that you show to people, and the way His kingdom was built up by that. I firmly believe now that God's kingdom is a gentle kingdom where violence doesn't accomplish anything, but it is that self-giving kindness and respect that you show one another that brings in His kingdom.
I began ministry in the 1970s, And as such, I was one of, the first wave of women who were answering the call to go into ministry. And the whole time I was in seminary, I was struggling with whether I was going to be ordained or try to do something else. And I would have people tell me that, oh, my call to ministry was of the devil because God wouldn't call a woman to ministry. And other people who would say, oh, everybody will accept women pastors. But in some of my first appointments, there were often older women who would talk to me and let me know that my presence in the pulpit as a woman, as an unmarried woman pastor, validated their lives, that they had felt all their lives that they were not quite whole in the path that they chose. And so that to me was one of those God moments that said, yes, there's a reason why I call women pastors, that we all belong to God. We all belong, and everybody is of divine worth in God's sight.